All right, good evening. Welcome to tonight's school board meeting. It's Monday, June 26th, 2023, 6 o'clock. When Susan Todd Advisory Board in the 1887 building. All the meetings are ordered. Mr. Todd, call roll, please.
Mr. Andre.
Here.
Mr. Gayheart.
Here.
Mr. Gatton.
Here.
Mrs. Ingersoll.
Here.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Here.
Mrs. Reckless.
Here.
Mr. Scarrow.
Here.
We do have a quorum. We will continue. Tonight's meeting was noticed for state statute. Do we have any discussion? Mr. Perkins, you've been read this statement several times, so I don't need to again. 3 minutes.
Awesome. Well, it's been a while since I've been here, so there's a little bit to cover. I've been a little tied up coaching my daughter's softball team, which has been awesome. Nobody keeps score, but I'm pretty sure we're undefeated. So there's kind of a lot to go through because there has been a lot. And the last one, I believe, was actually maybe Adam's first or second meeting. And he brought up some charges, and there was one for like $600-700, which was for Piggly Wiggly. And Bill, you said that was for, I think it was called Snack in a Pack. Is that what it was? I know that my church donated $3,000 for that. So if you could please take your time, do some due diligence as to where the other $2,400 went, that would be awesome. Thank you. And I know that there's a lot of policy stuff going on right now, and I do have a lot of concerns on some of the policies. And I do have questions as far as why so many things are opt-in versus opt-out. And I know we've hit this before, but I think some of the programs that you have, you'll find that a lot of the parents in this community want nothing to do with it if they actually know what it is. So I challenge the board to actually make the policy on those opt-in to switch it around. Make it opt-in instead of having to read a lengthy email to click on a link to get my child out of a survey talking about suicide and how he wants to kill himself at the 6th grade level. Also, in addition to that, you'll find that the majority of parents probably don't want to subject their children to that, and there is another aspect of things going on with the policies too that I do have that are concerning. Jason, just so you know, meeting with you the other day, I'm glad that we did. You have a tough job, and I think it personally has to suck some days and a lot of days. And I'm glad the only time we got close to throwing fists was when I mentioned your soda. But I am kind of concerned on some of the aspects of some of the policies that were brought up at the policy meetings. I think as the public, we should be able to email and have some of those read into the minutes, because there are times where we can't be here. Like, I can't be here and coaching my daughter's softball team. It's not possible. But I do agree, you should not be saying something that is either inappropriate or has the wrong, verbiage or swearing or something like that. I think that there's got to be a way to work with that. And I do have concerns over some of the repeat topics too. We should be able to say what we want for our 3 minutes to the board. This is our meeting, and this is our opportunity to voice our concerns to you as a board, and also in regards to moving the public speaking time. The more people here to hear what we have to say, how often do people actually come up here and speak out? Very rarely, since in the times that I've been coming kind of since January, and I'm concerned that it's restricting the freedom of the people to speak to the school board, because this is our chance. This is your meeting, and it's something that I don't think that if we slide some of those things around, that's going to impact. And especially if it's like at the end of the meeting, you may have already voted on it. You're voting on policy today, which on the policies that you're voting on, I hope that you have read 100% of what that new policy may be. And if you haven't been able to read 100% of it, you shouldn't be voting on it today, and make sure that you're 100% clear on what that policy is. Kick the can 2 weeks if you got it. You guys can make a motion to the delay, so you have a chance to be 100% sure on what your vote is going to be on behalf of all the people of Elkhorn. So that's all I want to say. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else? Moving on, new course proposals.
Hi, I'm Sarah Fox, Co-Director of Instruction. With me tonight, I have Mr. Matt Remus, and joining us virtually is Ms. Katie Myers. So we have 4 courses tonight that are up for proposal. We'd like to start with the music ones first because Mr. Remus had a rehearsal at 6:30 that he needs to get to for kids in Wisconsin. So we'll start with the beginning guitar, music appreciation, and the show choir course proposals. What we're really looking to do specifically in fine arts is to open up our course offerings a little bit more and have more opportunities for students specifically in fine arts. The guitar course really comes out of student interest in expressing their interest in having a course for something like this. The music appreciation course specifically would align with the general music course at the middle school and kind of be that next step. And then the third one, the show choir one, would really combine students' skill sets with singing and with dance, and hopefully create some opportunity for competitions in the future. I didn't know if you wanted to go through all 3 together or individually, but however you want to ask questions.
How do you want to do that?
Go ahead and ask questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the show choir one, I'm particularly interested in, I was in jazz choir all throughout. I mean, you were up in Antigo, so I mean, we're up in Antigo for all 4 years. Is this similar to that? Is this what you're looking for? Because I mean, I remember the choir teacher back then, we used to go to competition down in Milwaukee to do stuff.
Yeah, I guess I'm looking to maybe get our feet wet at the beginning. We have a lot of kids that participate pretty heavily on musicals. We went to 2 musicals a year last year just because the kids like it. A few years we went back to that. Anyway, I think that show choir and musicals kind of similar in that there's a lot of singing and dancing type of stuff. What I'm imagining doing is starting off, you know, obviously we're on a trimester, and the first 2 trimesters I think is going to continue to stay more like a traditional choir type of setup, whereas the third tri we're looking at moving that more towards show choir, and everything you do is kind of based on student interest anyway, you know, so you start with something there and then, you know, does it stay within that third tri or does it expand out? Getting into competition with show choir is a big step. You know, it's a very big, expensive step, and there's a lot of thing that goes into it. And sometimes I feel like that can also swallow a program, you know, and so I would like to at least start with, you know, something third tri, not really a competitive type of thing, just kind of doing something different. So, and what I'm really looking to do is actually replace, we currently third tri offer vocal jazz. And vocal jazz is a class that doesn't quite fit the way it used to with trimester. Originally, vocal jazz is a class where the kids in vocal jazz were also in chamber choir. And with a trimester type of schedule, you can't have a kid in both vocal jazz and chamber choir year round. It would be too Fitzler schedule. So that class is kind of, it's not the same as it used to. And I've been actually taking kids that meet during their study hall time. They don't get any credit for anything, but they meet during their study hall time, and we do more of that jazz type of music during that time. So I'd like to then take the actual vocal jazz class, and we're gonna just try out some show choir. What we want to do.
Great.
Matt, what's the cost impact as far as music? Do you have music? Do you need to acquire music?
No different than any other music. There will be some cost into having to hire somebody to do some choreography because you don't want me doing choreography. So, that's probably the biggest cost factor. I'll have to work with somebody. Typically in these type of situations, I think what generally would happen is we would look for somebody and you actually pick some students, leaders in a group that would meet with that person at a time that works for them, because it generally doesn't work during school. And then those kids go back and they teach it during school. And I just say, good job.
Would there be a possibility of partnering with UW Whitewater if they have any students who wanted to intern and are working on choreography, you know, as
That's
a
a
part of a
great idea.
degree?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah.
If
Yeah.
we can find.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's hard
Well-
to find people from Whitewater. We kind of struggle with that a little bit, but
They're not graduating very many music people right now.
yeah.
And maybe it's not Whitewater, maybe it's.
Yeah.
Somewhere else, yeah.
Yeah.
Concordia.
And to be honest, there's also kids that like to do that stuff too.
Oh, sure.
That have been dancing for a long time, and
Yeah.
but I don't know how to do it myself, so
Yeah.
I struggle just to learn it. So, so which is another reason why I don't care to have it be like the central focus of your program, because being myself somebody that doesn't dance very well, I feel like that can sometimes also make other kids be like, oh,
I'm out.
yeah, I'm
Just
out.
because.
Yeah.
He did list cost of $500, but this taking the place of jazz vocal, I'm guessing that portion is a wash. It would
Yeah.
just be the time needed for the choreography.
Yeah, the choreography would be, I think that the music ends up being a wash compared to just buying different music and so on.
As a huge Broadway fan, this is great.
I would, Matt, how many students participate in musicals this spring? I believe when you go into all the different categories,
when you go
you're
into-
well over 100 students.
Yeah,
usually
there's,
in that
when you look
production.
at both the kids that are in the cast and the pit that are backstage working on the lights and all this stuff, you're getting around 100 kids or so that are participating in that.
Significant.
So,
It's
yeah,
about 10% of our student body.
it's a pretty big production, yeah.
So, so the next one was the guitar,
Mhm.
course that I was looking at. I was looking at the startup cost potentially of it. And if there has enough interest, you're looking at about $200 per instrument.
Mhm.
What are your expectations of what that would mean on if it had a lot of interest? Are we looking 20 students is all considered a lot of interest, or what would you consider that?
What would I consider a lot of interest? Oh, that's so tough to answer. I would say we currently have a world percussion class that runs in like the 8 to 12 kids. I don't know. I actually took this spring semester, I took some grad classes in teaching guitar. I've been playing guitar for quite a while, and I thought, well, this class sounds interesting, because the reason I was interested in doing guitar is as unlike almost everything else that we do musically at the school, we don't have a lot of classes for you to just try out. If you are in band, you're either in band or you're not in band. You're not recruiting new kids to band when they're in high school. And honestly, choir is pretty much the same thing. It's a little bit easier on the choir side. Sometimes they pick up some kids. So we're looking just for ways with I think with all these classes is maybe just looking for different ways to get some different kids in our room that we don't typically see in our room. So I don't know. And what I was saying, like the guy that I've been learning from, he has classes with like 50 kids playing guitar at once. I don't anticipate anything like that, a lot of kids have guitars. I think that what I would suggest doing to start out the class, Sarah did mention the possibility that there are different, what's the word I'm looking
Like
for?
funding. and-
Yeah, funding that we could look into to possibly purchase some guitars. Everybody has to have a guitar to obviously do the course, but lots of kids have guitars themselves. I would require the kids to have an acoustic guitar as opposed to an electric guitar, so you don't have to deal with the amplification and stuff like that. But I would imagine with many of these things, you just you start from where you're at. And I'm imagine that we sign up for the class And I'll have to look into how many kids you have and email or talk with those kids individually. Do you have a guitar? Do you have your own instrument? If you do, can you bring it in so I can make sure it works, works properly? And then you get an idea of how many you need and then go from there. And similar to so many things, I think you build from there,
I think keeping in mind that these are for 2024, 2025. So we have all of next year. We'll have the registration next January, which will give us an idea for the numbers. So
Yeah.
through grants or through music department budget or fundraising, we should be able to.
One of my major concerns with it is with band, you mentioned band, the equivalency here, or at least comparison.
Yeah.
With band, we require our students to come in and purchase their own equipment. It happens with all of them. My son's been playing clarinet since he was in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And we had to go purchase him one, and then he broke it, and so we had to purchase him another one. As parent, but looking at $200 per instrument, it's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a lot of money, but that still is a considerable amount of money. I guess, knowing what we're looking at towards that for the future, because I don't want to start a class. I don't want to look at starting a class and then come back later and say, hey, we don't have what we need for this class, and then have to come back and purchase a whole bunch of stuff. Because at the beginning we said, well, students are going to bring their own, but then we had students that couldn't afford that. And we're like, well, now we're talking to heartstrings, hoping that we can get those students the guitars in the end.
But I would say the band is the exact same thing right now. We're not turning anybody away from band. If you cannot provide an instrument for your child, we take care of one. It's in addition to all the different instruments that we cover anyway. If your child ends up playing bass clarinet, because you need bass clarinets in your band, we cover those because almost all kids are not going to go purchase one. If you play the French horn, if you play the tuba, if you play the bari sax, those are instruments that kids will not play. And there's, so I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
perfect. That's a perfectly acceptable answer, brother.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
I remember years ago, we put out a want for instruments. We
Yeah,
were
honestly,
coming from
yes.
everywhere.
I was just
gonna
People
say. Especially
they had
in
them
this
their basement
town.
from their kids or
Yep.
wherever it was from.
Yeah.
Do you think that'd be something that we could, for the guitars? Do you think it'd be a good- Oh, that'd be
I mean,
great.
think about
That'd be
it,
great.
putting up guitars and that.
Okay.
I know.
I mean, it had to be good ones.
Yeah.
They don't ever touch them.
Yeah.
And I'm sure working with the band boosters or the performing arts boosters would probably help us.
Sure.
with that. I'd be more concerned if they were like $1,000 a piece. or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Can we
have a
look at,
discussion?
Yeah.
modifying the, language to say that it's, to learn the acoustic guitar, be more specific? Only because,
Sure.
I wouldn't want there to be an assumption for a kid
That they're gonna get-
who is really just wanting to play
Yeah.
electric guitar and
Yep.
then signs up for the class and then finds out
Yeah.
it's not for electrics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
You will have my daughter signing up for the electric guitar.
so I feel like if that is the intent,
Yeah.
that it's acoustic guitar,
Yeah.
we should probably say that.
That's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
Other question? All right. We need to hear that subject for motion.
Then we still have one more.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me go through it, Carol.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
guys.
Thank you.
All right. Katie, can you hear us all right?
Yep, I can hear you.
Awesome. All right, so the final course proposal is the apparel construction course. And this one really builds off of our Sewing One course. Since before COVID, our kids have been asking for that next step to build their skills in this area. And so Katie brought this course proposal forward. Questions about this course at all?
Love it.
It's awesome.
It's good to have.
Absolutely.
And everything on, for me, it looks self-explanatory, and I've got no questions that would benefit the group. It looks pretty good to me.
Katie, anything you'd like to add in regards to the course?
The biggest thing, which is kind of a good thing, would be the startup cost. My previous school that I work at, they're eliminating their sewing program, so I should be able to get some of the supplies at a very cheap rate since they're eliminating all their sewing classes. So I'm gonna buy like the secondhand stuff from that school compared to buying everything brand new for the dress forms.
I love that.
Other questions? All right. Now,
I move to approve the EAHS new course proposals as presented, or modified, excuse me.
is there a second?
I second.
So moved and seconded to approve the EAHS new course proposals as modified. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mr. Gavin,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
You.
Thanks. Thanks, Katie.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks for approving it.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Tori Gaskin.
I'm the food service supervisor here at Elkhorn. Happy I can make it this time, considering last time I ended up having to do it over the web. So happy to be here. And we are here to discuss current meal prices and proposing new meal prices for next school year. So currently, our elementary school breakfasts are at $1.15. Middle school and high school, they operate at the same price at $1.30, and that's because the items that we offer and the way that we function out of both of those kitchens are similar. They're pretty much exactly the same. Lunch for elementary is at $2.25. Middle school is $2.40, so 10 cents cheaper than high school. High school does have a little bit of other options compared to the middle school level. And our milk price is at 35 cents. So these meal prices, they have been pretty consistent. Obviously, the past few years, universal free meals have been a thing. And that's why we're reevaluating, because that's no longer a thing. So I found data across local school districts within our area looking at what their prices currently are. These prices are from this past school year. So none of the proposed prices in this slideshow for like the Delavan, East Troy, Badger, Whitewater, those are all from this previous school year. So none of these indicate changes that they might be proposing as well. Breakfast right now, you can see we're right in between East Troy and Delavan. Elementary level, $1.15 and $1.30 at the middle school and high school level. Whitewater and Badger, they do currently offer breakfast for free for all students. However, that could be changing for next school year. So Whitewater, I think they're proposing a change. They're in our co-op currently. So that's a big topic, is changing meal prices. Looking at for lunches, if you want to go to the next slide. So we're looking at Delavan, East Troy, Badger, and Whitewater, and then obviously us as well. Elkhorn is by far the lowest prices across the board within the local school districts. And again, these are prices that are based off of this past school year, so 22-23. And with the fact that, again, universal free meals are no longer a thing, we have to consider, cost of food and everything else as to why we should possibly raise them. So if we go to the next slide, proposed meal price changes. So breakfast at the elementary level, $1.15. We're proposing it up $1.25 for next school year. Middle school breakfast and high school breakfast, again, same price, just because they function similarly. Same amount of people and time and effort that goes into those programs at $1.55 from $1.30. And then for lunch, slightly increasing it as well for elementary, $2.25 to $2.40. Middle school, $2.40 to $2.55, and then high school lunch, $2.50 to $2.65. There is a little bit of a larger increase percentage-wise at the breakfast level. Breakfast participation isn't super high compared to obviously what it's been when everything was free for everybody. Our lunch counts have actually held their own since meals have not been free, so that's actually a good sign. Kids are pretty much taking lunch. Not as to the extent of what it was when they were all free, but the number of participation is pretty high still. So if you go to the next slide, we have proposed comparisons. We're still way below compared to other local school districts. So big thing with that is we don't want to sticker shock families. It was already a huge adjustment going from free meals. Actually, some graduating seniors and having them pay negative balances, because this could have been from previous years before universal free meals were even a thing, that we were still, they had negative balances from like 5 years ago. Yes. So for some families were like, oh my gosh, like I didn't even know like meals weren't free. And we're like, we've been sending out stuff constantly. So it's yes. So when you're like, oh yeah, you're negative $80 and then they have to pay a check, not very fun. So we don't want to discourage kids and families from participating in our school program. They want a variety, and specifically since taking on this role, I've really tried implementing, fresh fruits and vegetables and certain, food items that may not have been possibly available before. It's just, there comes a cost with that. So with that, the reasons for the increase, we've all been grocery shopping recently. So prices are very high. So CPI overall from the USDA ERS report, it's approximately 8% increase for everybody across the board. So we've seen this in our personal lives. We see it in our invoices for Cisco. Things are not cheap. That being said, waivers for federal, the lack of waivers this year due to, COVID, not for savings over, but over. And the change in federal reimbursement rates are significantly huge too. So our reimbursement rates aren't as much. Last year, per meal on average, we were receiving a $4.65 approximately reimbursement rate per meal. And this year it's only around $2.35. So pretty significant. And then cost of commodity and quality products as well. So commodity changes have, prices have increased as well. So handling fees, all the admin side of that we see in our reports, past few years, there hasn't been any, and we're starting to see those charges again that we have to take into consideration. So those are my proposed changes for prices. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
It looks like the breakfast goes roughly like 19% on the two higher items compared to lunch, which is around 6%. Is it just because breakfast is more expensive, or?
So typically the items are a little bit more expensive. They tend to be prepackaged things. So the cost, the packaging, as well as when you're looking at what we pay to do it versus what student demographic is actually taking breakfast as well. So we do receive higher reimbursement rates for those because most kids that are taking it are free and reduced, at least within this year. Last year was a little bit different because, paid kids could also, or paid status could also receive breakfast for free, but this year not so much. And again, I don't want to defer people from taking it if it's needed, but there's going to be changes too because of regulations for certain products. Like, we talked about added sugars last time.
Yeah.
So that's now actually coming into a conversation as well. So I'm sure there's going to be pricing changes and regarding all of the products that we may be using and what type of products that we're going to have to use. So we're just kind of gradually, this will probably be a topic you'll hear next year as well. Just trying to prep so people are aware, and again, not sticker shocking families where we're, raising lunches by $1 when, because it's a lot.
So do you think that's going to be a subject, not this calendar year, but next calendar year? You think they're going to trust that type of stuff?
For like added sugars and, there's talk of, sodium restrictions, like they're getting tighter on that. Chocolate milk might be a thing of the past. So there's lots of policy and USDA regulations that are coming up to discuss about what can be allowed on our menus.
Okay.
So
make sure you keep us.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's interesting stuff. So
Thank you.
Fifth grade here, and he doesn't like the sound of chocolate milk leaving at all. I added it up slightly. I was using round-ish numbers, and there's no real question here. It's just the fact that I wanted to, there's a difference between looking at this and saying, hey, there's an increase of 10 cents per meal versus what is a family going to pay for a student over an entire year increase here. I only did high school, but I was eating breakfast and lunch. So per child at that level, we're looking about approximately an $80 increase over the year for food that they would have to be paying into it. Again, like there's no question here. It's just it's a lot easier in my mind to be able to understand it that way than day by day, meal by meal. So.
And this would be the first increase in how many years?
Oh my gosh, I mean,
2019.
yeah.
Yeah, I
So
was
it's
gonna
been a
say,
hot
it's
minute.
been a while since we've had
Now,
an increase.
Is this isn't a mandatory one though? This is one that we're going to keep Fund 50, our food service fund, in balance.
Correct.
And I think looking back at least the past 24 years that I can recall, we've always operated in a positive balance for our food service program.
Yeah.
In some districts, if they don't, then they borrow from their general fund, which basically means you're taking your instructional budget to
Yeah.
supplement that. So we've been fortunate that we've never really had to do that. I know this year when we look at those expenses, and Tori and I talked in terms of just overall revenues and expenses, it's likely that expenses will exceed our revenues this year. But we're starting with a nice balance over the previous year. So it's really kind of looking more of a strategic long-term look. How do we need to adjust pricing? How can we make that balance? going
Rather
forward?
than in next year having
Have
a
a
big
large-
jump
exactly.
to a small increment.
And again, not only just the cost of food items, but especially,
Yeah.
federal reimbursement rates and waivers. And I mean, I was doing the math and just looking at our October claim from this past year versus the year prior. There was only a difference of, I think, approximately 3,000 meals total for the month across all of the schools. And the difference was like $160,000 last year versus 64,000. But if we were at the previous reimbursement rate, it would have been like 140,000. So yeah, it's quite a different.
Have you noticed an equalization, a slowing down of the expenditures for food in the last couple of months, or has it just continued to go the way that it had been at the beginning of the school year?
As in for purchasing?
For purchasing, yeah.
Yeah, so we have, obviously with the end of the school year, we try to use whatever inventory we have. The last few weeks of school, it's kind of like a cook's choice menu. So we utilize inventory. So we try not to rack up invoices when we can. We do have summer school feeding though as well. So trying to plan menus, we're actually getting audited for that this week. So I have the fun of planning for that as well. So trying to make sure we abide by all the federal regulations because there's very specific meal requirements each week. So for example, vegetables, there's different subcategories for each. So making sure we're still able to meet those. So sometimes it's like we have to, purchase things to meet those requirements, but we try to, at the end of the year, slow purchasing down a little bit if we can.
I guess more along lines what I was trying to get at is, do you foresee us in the next year and the year after, like the prices continuing to go up the way they did this last year?
Oh.
Or are we looking at?
So that's a great question. I have no idea. I think it's hard to prove,
I know that.
I guess
Of course.
to try to figure out, consumer price index. I mean, that's kind of like how people are talking with like housing market. They're praying it's going to crash soon. And, I don't know how much food will go up. And then, I have the fun thing to deal with, like, for example, poultry, like crazy prices because of bird flu. So then like things like eggs and poultry items, anything like that, crazy increases the price. Well, if we use products that have eggs, then all of a sudden all the items that we were using, all of those prices go up. So it also depends on what money we diverted to in direct diversion, and they lock those prices in. So direct diverted items, they do lock those in, but for stuff like that, like for produce for certain out of season, it tends to be higher than the other. We try to avoid to help, steer from those costs. But yeah, there's only so much predictability. Yep,
Poultry's back down.
it is.
Baby's not though.
How are we still lower? We're significantly lower than our neighbors.
They have a lot of, actually, most school districts last year did increase prices. So we did not. That's a huge factor as well. So this is only my first year as director. So previously for meal pricing, I'm not sure the history of other local districts around us that, you know, this was just the data that I pulled from recently.
Sure.
How many of our comparables outsourced to a third party? Are we the only ones that keep it in-house?
There's, I mean, Delavan did, Badger, I think you're talking about. Yeah, we're
What do you mean?
a lot of,
Purchasing?
So, a lot of-
Everyone increased.
so similar to what we do for our busing.
Yes.
Other districts will do that for their food service, where they'll pay an outside company to manage the food service program. With that, I think you get, they're gonna have to have their margin.
yeah, so there's contract management companies. So you'll see it like Waterford's contract management, Burlington, so not even within, this area of the states. There's tons of schools that have now switched to contract management. So different beast, not as much flexibility and options that, we can run within our school district, which is great because we can bring on new ideas and not have to go through a different company to get the approval for that and then obviously go through you guys. So there's definitely, it's nice being in-house, so.
No, a number of districts who have moved to that is because they've had difficulty managing their own program. So they haven't had a Tory or an Allen Leisure or other people to really manage a nice, effective program. And one of the things that Tory participates in is a co-op program of area school districts where they leverage their purchasing. So they want to mitigate the price increases as much as we can.
Great question. All right, do you approve it?
I move to approve the 2023-2024 meal price is as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2023-2024 meal prices as presented. Roll call, please.
Mr. Andre?
Yep.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mr. Gatton?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles?
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tori.
All right, next we have our minutes from June 12th. Regular and closed. Questions, comments?
I do have a question. Actually, before I ask the question. Never mind, it's on there.
We'll look at the motion.
Where is it? There it is. I move to approve the regular and closed session minutes from June 12th, 2023 as presented.
Is there a second?
I second.
So moved and seconded to approve the regular and closed session minutes from June 12th, 2023 is presented. Roll call, vote.
Mr. Andre?
Abstain.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mr. Gatton?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles?
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow?
Stay.
Motion carried. General and other fund bills, Mr. Tron.
The general other fund bills this evening covers checks number 149547 through 149659, wire transfers 1101 through 1103, and ACH checks number 862 through, 762 through 793, the combined amount of $301,583.92. And then there was a memo providing some additional information on the bills. You probably noticed in the bill listing was a number of reimbursement for transportation, and that's the parochial transportation we do on an annual basis. So school districts are required to provide reimbursement for parochial schools that are within 5 miles on our district boundaries. We have, I believe, 6 schools, parochial schools within that. So,
I do know when I went to I was the delegate at the state convention this year, one of the,
Resolutions?
resolutions that we passed was to, and I was wholeheartedly in favor of this, was to reimburse per family rather than per student. It's, the rule is ridiculous, so I haven't heard yet if,
I don't think the legislature's brought that up.
yeah,
So for the public, just so you're aware, is like normally when, if you travel, you get to submit a mileage reimbursement for the vehicle and the driver. For the parochial school reimbursement, you get to submit the reimbursement for every student
Every
in the
student that
vehicle.
you're
So if you have 5 that you're transporting, you get reimbursed for 5.
yep.
Yeah. So
So as,
the only scenario that I can think of where it exists. That way.
so that's a state law, and as school board members, delegates, we voted almost unanimously at the state delegation to change that, but whether the state legislature has taken that up, and we haven't heard yet, but
No, they haven't.
It's been on there for years.
I'm sure, I know, that's what I heard, is that it gets.
Um,
I did have a question, Bill. Give me a little bit more insight on the vehicle for the CCA.
Thank you.
build.
Yeah, that's a vehicle they're gonna be using for, I know, student transportation. I think they're also looking at driver's ed as a possible program.
Oh, so it's not just for youthville, it's for the CCA.
It is for the CCA program.
Got it.
Yes, so,
Okay,
so it's not being funded through Youth Build grant. It's
Got
being funded through a separate grant, which is the
Okay.
charter school grant.
okay,
And the charter school grant has funding for the vehicle, and then you'll probably see a lot of the advertising. That's
Yeah.
also being funded through that charter school grant.
It's the Community
Yeah.
Learning Center grant, which
Okay.
was 125,000 a year. I don't know.
That's a separate grant, but the charter school grant was, I think, 750,000
I was gonna say,
over
that
a
one was pretty
period
significant.
of either 3 or 5 years.
Yeah. That's fine. Okay, and so they're gonna offer driver's ed to.
That is my understanding.
Which the state is working on reinstituting
Oh,
school-based driver's
interesting.
education. And I think they allocated 30 million this
Yes.
first year for grants to do it, because what they're finding, and when we talk with our local employers,
Yeah.
is this job shortage or finding employees. It's difficult because a lot of, since they drop driver's ed in schools, you're seeing less and less teenagers getting their driver's license.
Correct.
Up until they're 18 or older.
Yeah.
So the businesses are putting pressure on as well, that, hey, we need our teenagers to be able to get a driver's license.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, thank you.
and they did go with, she went with a hybrid to keep ongoing fuel costs down the road. So I think it's, Toyota Corolla gets like 50 plus miles per gallon. Something like that.
Other questions, Mr. Chairman? I'm looking for motion.
I'll move, go ahead, Andre.
I move to approve the general and other fund bills of June 26, 2023. Check number is 149547 to 149659. Wire number is 1101 to 1103, and ACH numbers 762 to 793, and the combined amount of $301,583.92 as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve the general and other fund bills of June 26, 2023. Checks numbered 149547 to 149659. Wire numbers 1101 to 1103, and ACH number 762 to 793, and the combined amount of $301,583.92 as presented. Roll call vote.
Mr. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mr. Gatton,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow.
Yes.
Motion carried. Student parent handbook.
Hey, Bill, these just For the record, these memos that you send out are
Yeah.
awesome. You're like a mind reader.
I know. You know what
I
we're
try to
trying.
guess on what I think.
It's wild.
Next up is the student handbook. That was on the agenda at the last meeting. We tabled it for further review. I know the policy committee went through, added some recommended changes. Are there any questions from the board or sections that you want to review in particular, as it is a larger document?
I had, all my questions that I had at the moment, I have written you about, Jason, and you've answered them relatively well. I only want to say this part on it, which is there are parts of this handbook which I am highly concerned about. However, Jason has told me and promised me that we will take up those concerns at a later point to adjust the handbook based off of those concerns that I do have.
I think just for the clarity piece, Devin, which page was that? Because I think,
Oh, Jason, I think it's page 6, 7, hold on. Looks like it's page 6, but it's page 7 overall.
okay, let me go to that page. Because Jody did have a suggestion if there was a concern. What Devin had shared in looking at our,
I'm so sorry, guys. It's down a little bit more. It's right here.
this one right here.
Yep.
As it relates to the non-discrimination policy and procedure in particular.
It was the first, let me make sure. I think it's the very first hyperlink. Maybe not. I'm looking at stating his.
I don't think it's those two.
Is it not those ones? Let me look and see. I know it's in here. Here it is. Okay, it's page 6. It is page 6. Inclusivity in our schools is due to read the school district's anti-racism policy. Click here.
Okay, yeah. So what Devin had shared is within this anti-racism policy, there's a section which that policy was developed, was it 3 years ago? 2 or 3 time flies.
2021 then.
2021. There's a section where it has the definitions related to racism, and it cites a source that was utilized, which really isn't needed to be cited, but the source that was cited, and Devin clicking on it, looking at that, is affiliated with a political party or affiliation. So the sentiment was we should take that back to policy committee because we've worked hard to make sure that we don't have any, whether it's right or left or any aspect, that we want to always stay agnostic as a school board and a local entity. And so we can take the actual policy back to the policy committee. And what I asked Jody to do is just go through the dictionary, use an innocuous source and pull the definition straight from the Oxford Dictionary or the Webster Dictionary, I don't care which one, and then eliminate the reference to the source, which would be considered to be aligned with a political party. So I think that was the concern. Something Jody shared is if it's concerning enough that we want to eliminate that connection, now we could just strike that paragraph. I don't know if it's necessary as when we looked at the actual policy, there's nothing in the policy that was of concern, so to say, other than the alignment or the mentioning of the source being cited. Is that correct? Or
For the most part, yes.
yeah. Okay. So we could leave as is and work through the policy committee to eliminate that reference. Or we could strike that paragraph in the interim if we want. She just needs the handbook.
Could we
For
at
the
this,
registration.
because I would like to go back and look at that, in the policy end, but for the purpose of passing, getting the handbook ready, could we strike the last sentence that just says to read the district's anti-racism policy, click here, and just end it with
Yep.
You know, the statement that we reject all forms of racism, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Could we,
That
does
works.
that make
Yep,
sense? At least,
absolutely.
at least for the,
For time being,
Yeah.
absolutely, it makes sense.
Okay. Were there any other questions or concerns?
Someone came up in the future, just future state thought here, say we want to change the emergency school closings in 3 months from now, and this has been approved, we're good to go, it's kind of done, and we want to change it. Would that then have to go through policy and then the board and then?
Yeah.
But we could still amend it at some point.
yeah,
And then we would just republish and.
Yeah,
if we want to.
And it's not like we got.
No, we're not stuck with it
no,
for
no,
years.
no.
Okay.
We can change it whenever we want.
I don't, do we actually physically print this book or do we just, yeah, I don't think.
Should try not to.
Yeah.
Did that.
I just like, I like pencils and paper.
I mean, we do support the paper industry in Wisconsin. But,
Yeah.
no, but
Trying to hold
typically
costs
it's
down.
electronic. So it's something that if we modified, we could modify.
It is
it
easily
and
modified.
Notify the parents.
I know that there's been concern, in the past with, parents, that the handbook doesn't always match what our policies are. Is there any ability for us to make those match as much as possible? Meaning, if we have a policy on something, can we just take the policy and just put it directly in the handbook? That way there is no.
So I wish Jody was here so she could speak to that because
Yeah.
that's what she does on most of that. Now, sometimes, and we've run into this before where might have been looking at the policy, but she copied and pasted from the rule or those pieces, but it's pretty much taken verbatim, copied and pasted from policy. If there is anything out of alignment, then that should be corrected, but she's does a pretty good job of going through and vetting that, but there has been a time or two where a section was looking at was coming from the rule and then, rather
Yeah,
than.
if
put
you
the
find
policy.
things like that, then just bring it to Jason and we can look at it.
Take a look at the policy. Cool.
Yep.
Okay.
Other questions? Is there a motion?
I move to approve the 2023-2024 K-12 Student Parent Handbook and direct administration to update the handbook with the revised student survey language once available as presented. Oh, sorry, as modified.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
So moved and seconded to approve the 2023-2024 K-12 student parent handbook and direct administration to update the handbook, with the revised student survey language once available as modified. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Andre,
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart,
Yes.
Mr. Gatton,
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles,
Yes.
Mr. Scarrick.
Yes.
Director's report.
Now, Mrs.
How are you?
Good.
Good. My name is Esther Weitzel. I'm the Parent Connections Coordinator for the district and let you know what that means. I have some things for you, but my big job is to connect families to the district who have like newborns through 4K kiddos. And I do that with programming and events with the district and the community. So, for example, we do story time. This week I'm doing a story time at the library, then I'm going to kindergarten here in Macomb, and then story time at the library, and then a field trip on Friday. So kind of, and then everybody's welcome and invited to those kind of things. So in our district, we have, we're kind of competing with other districts who have that full day 4K. And so my job is to kind of connect into the district when they're newborns and all the way up through 4K. And Mr. Talek does a great job sending an invitation out to all
families with newborns in our school district saying, hey, welcome to the district. And part of my job, I do like birthday bags. So you can come into the district office and get your newborn literacy bag, and it has parent information and books and things like that. And kind of with the information on how to have access to the programs here. So that's part of what I do. This 2022-2023 was my first year here. So I just finished. I was expecting like a finish line over there. But it is truly follows my passion. So thank you for having me here. And I'm following in the footsteps of Patty Woods, who was a great trailblazer, and I'm very thankful for her. Today, I'm here to tell you about Young Athletes. So it was a new program. It was very successful this year, and I kind of wanted to show you what that's all about. If you hear people talk about it.
That's your finish line.
Yeah, definitely with that. So today I'll share with you the program goals, our target audience, our community involvement, what the program looks like, and then the future. So in September, I was invited to Lakeland School and to attend their resource fair as kind of a booth. And as a booth and being new to the community, I decided to visit all the booths. And there I met a Special Olympics representative from Wisconsin. And lo and behold, they have a program called Young Athletes. And so I kind of signed up and to get more information, and we started rolling with the program. So if you could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So a Special Olympics Young Athletes, their goal is a sport and play program for grown-ups and children. Their target audience is ages 2 through 7 years old. And basically you work on pre-sport skills. We all have t-ball and basketball, but some kiddos need a little bit of a slower stepping stone progress, like hand-eye coordination and balance, and how to strike something and connect it, connect the object to what they're holding. So they need kind of a step back. And so all students are available, welcome, all abilities, whether you have special needs or you don't have special needs, whether you come from a big family or a small family, with and without those disabilities. Part of the reason I want, oh, sorry, Mr. Tass, thank you. I would like, my goal when I was adopting the program is to have a safe and welcoming and inclusive environment for families, so that grown-ups and children can play together and have something to do together and not take up too much time, but kind of teach the grown-ups how to engage their student and help build those abilities as well, and those large motor skills. Another kind of hidden agenda is that I took their sessions, and I'll explain that in a little bit. And we had the Young Athletes program in each building of our district, from high school, middle school, to options, to all the elementary schools, and even Lakeland School. We had it over there because a lot of people are like, what's Lakeland? Or what's options? Or I have littles and I've never been to the high school. So I wanted it kind of to be a showcase. And so they had that connection, that positive memory from that event to connect them to all the buildings in the district. So we had 8 locations. So at the top, we started with Jackson and they did the foundational skills. Then we went through walking and running at the high school, where we had HOSA and DECA and those high schools, peer models at each of the stations. And we went all the way down to like a grand finale. So those are the 8 sessions, and each session would focus on one specific foundational skill. What does it look like? It's basically an hour, and it's set up in stations. So there are 5 stations, and the kiddos get 8 minutes at that station. And then we have a lot of visuals and a timer, visual timer, and an auditory transitional sound to let them know they need to move on to the next station. When they went through all 5 stations, yay, you did it. And then you come back to the next school for the next station, next session that works on a particular area. So that's it in a nutshell for that. What they did was, I'm going to show you, these are the activity guides. So when you sign up for Young Athletes, they give you kind of an activity guide, and there's the table of contents. And then, for example, foundational skills, it has some suggestive activities. And so what I did was I looked at those, and I wanted this kind of station format. Sometimes the schools, and I keep a clip for you guys, so you know where to go. You're welcome. Thanks. You are so welcome. No, I don't have any cookies or goodies for you, just books. Okay. So, so what I had to do was I took they have like for foundational skills, they have scarf catching. Well, you can't really do that for 8 minutes and, you know, have the kids stay engaged. So I came up with basically activities for each station and kind of made it fun. So parachute, instead of just playing parachute, we took scarves and made spaghetti and then added pom-poms for meatballs, and then they shook it and it flew all over the place, that kind of thing. So kind of like putting that preschool magic in there so that they have that fun experience, and also drawing in the parents. This isn't a sideline thing for parents to sit out or grown-ups to sit out. They have to be engaged and be right there in there with them. So this is kind of what they set out, and a lot of schools incorporate this in their PE programs and kind of make sure they're touching on these fundamentals, which I think we do a pretty good job at in our school district. It's just that if parents want to, like, I thought this was a great place for parents to be engaged, for parents to have something to do on a cold February, you know. So we came up with this, and it was very successful. Staff came out to help, and community members came out to help, so it was excellent. In the corner, if you go back one, they do give you basic equipment. So if you take that little paper clip and you pull it off and you flip that blue page backwards, it tells you kind of some of the equipment. They said we had to rent, but because several schools in our Walworth County signed up, but they didn't follow through, Lakeland and Elkhorn were the only schools that kind of kept it going. So they said, you can have the equipment for free. So they gave me the equipment, and I said, well, I kind of am doing a lot of stations. I need maybe like 10 of each. So they gave me 10 boxes of what I'm supposed to have. Wow. So now we can run 5 or 6 stations at once. And that's what I was hoping for. So that was pretty cool. And then the advanced equipment, I was able to get Elkhorn Community Fund Grant to fund like the balance beams and the bigger equipment that made it a little bit more exciting and fun and inventive. So we had ours expanded 2 to 8 years old because we cut it off, I think it's 2nd grade. We sent out invitations through the district, and we also publicized it. So Mr. Tadlick, would you please click on the Elkhorn Young Athletes link? So Katie Hoffman made this beautiful web page. It starts out, we're going to have our own kids on there next time, but she had set that up. And if you scroll down, there's the details, registration, and it has some frequently asked questions. And then right there, we took them down because it's no longer going right now, but we put up, you know, how to register your child, and then the volunteer registration. So everything was on one page, easy access. We had it on QR codes, on posters everywhere in the library, and it was very well received. We did originally have sponsors for that equipment, but like I said, it was donated from the Special Olympics for me. So we could keep it. So that was lovely. And then if you look at the participant addresses, this is pretty cool. We had 75% of it roughly came from our district, but 25% came from outside the district. I know that some of the special ed staff from Delavan came over and asked me, how did you do it? And so I think they might have one running, but we touched the heartstrings of several from outside our community, which is pretty awesome. And then if we could go on to the next one, we had 77 total participants. Now they didn't come to every single one of them. They could pick and choose. We had roughly, one time we had 55, another time we had like 20. So it just depended if it was a nice day and those kinds of things. And then our demographic, we had the 2 through 6 year olds was big, you know, that 4-year-old peak in there. And then it kind of petered off at 8. So we extended it. And then the breakdowns of students with special needs and students without special needs in there too. So only roughly about 22% had special needs. The others were, sometimes they were siblings. And a lot of feedback was, this is great because my 8-year-old can do that with my 3-year-old, you know, and we can do it as a family thing. So that was a good feedback.
How many months is this program again?
It is an 8-session thing.
Okay.
And you don't have to, that's what I made it into.
Yeah.
But I think that was doable. We started from February to May, and then we're going to tweak it a little bit. So if we could switch to the
I
next.
just wanted to point out, Esther, I think it's fantastic that you were able to get 91 volunteers.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You know, they loved it. We had some recurring volunteers that had their hearts in it, and a lot of high school kids. It was amazing. The cheer squad was awesome. They were phenomenal. So yeah, we are talked about at the staff meetings at the board in Madison. Special Olympics is talking about Elkhorn and the Young Athletes Program, and they may have people come visit and see it because they want our kind of model to be shared with other districts. And the staff of Lakeland, Delavan, and Lake Geneva also are trying to tap in to see how we made this program a success. So it was pretty cool. And then next year, instead of starting in February, I'm hoping to start in October. Now that we got our feet wet, and then end in April before those NHS hours expire. So the May grand finale was really cool. We had it in the high school and in the Agility Center, and they rotated through, and then the cheer squad was there to cheer them through, and they had popsicles and tattoos and free t-shirts donated. So they felt like rock stars, which is the point, right? A little self-confidence. And then that's it. I just wanted to thank you for providing me the opportunity for being here today. And we're a phenomenal district, and we support, encourage, inspire, and include families of all shapes, sizes, and needs and abilities. So thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I say,
You can ask questions.
yeah, can I ask a couple of
Yep,
questions?
sure,
It's
sure.
awesome. So it's gonna happen again, hopefully in October. I see this program sustainability of $4,000 cost. Is that just for the equipment, or is there other costs associated with it?
No, there's no more. That was just initially if they didn't donate the equipment. No more after that.
I would
So
suggest you still do the sponsors because you can raise some good money. for this
big money
program.
for that,
Yep.
yeah.
And I will definitely be signing up, volunteering, and bringing my 4-year-old.
Yes,
all of this.
wonderful.
And sponsoring it if you go that.
All right, I'm gonna have you sign my sheet before I leave.
Yeah, this is awesome.
You have any other questions? Anybody else want to sign my sheet?
I would just give a huge compliments to Esther. She came into a role that Patty had done for years. I think everybody knows that, big shoes to fill. I think she took the role, made it her own, added something like that. This would have never happened, come to fruition, been a model program without Esther's leadership and drive and desire to do that and put it together. So I've been so appreciative of her being able to step in, take over and do that and make it her own and a great service to the community. So thank you, Esther,
Thank
for
you.
great first year.
Go upstairs, get a hug from me later. Good job, you guys. Thank you. Good afternoon, evening.
My name is Santa Holmes. I'm the Community Resilience Outreach Coordinator. And I just wanted to give a quick update about a program that is occurring in August. And with me, I have Katie and Ann, who will talk about the program as well. So we are doing a Girls Confidence Boot Camp, August 14th through the 18th at the Elkhorn Area Middle School. And the reason that I wanted to bring this to you folks for your attention is that there are a couple people in the community that reached out to me talking about Girls on the Run program. I'm like, oh, this is a fantastic program, dug into it, it's nationwide, it works with emotional learning and physical activity. So I'm like, this would be great. I dug a little bit more into it. The program has 3 to 5 month longevity, as well as a cost to the participants of roughly around $125 per child to do this program. And I was like, okay, I want to give this to the community, but not at that cost. So I reached out to some leadership within elementary school districts, which led me to Katie and some other teachers, and tried to brainstorm a way of how do we bring this to the community and not having a cost to our residents or to our families that would want to do this, which then Katie came up with a great idea. So Katie, I'm going to let you.
Oh, sure. So the way Girls on the Run does it is they kind of do a theme for the day. So for example, a theme might be friendships, creating friendships, or I guess positive friendships. And then they will do like an activity, kind of a little mini lesson, and then they do some sort of movement activity, which with Girls on the Run is typically walking or running. So Ann and I have been talking about this for years because we've been in the elementary world and seen some of the challenges that girls face as they come up on middle school. So we were kind of thinking, well, we would take out the running aspect of it, but just teach some of those core values that Girls on the Run teaches. And that would be like, positive talk and positive friendships, empowering each other. They're big on self-care. So eating nourishing foods, getting good sleep, limiting your screen time, things like that, which are things we've been talking about for years. Like we wish we could share this with girls, with everybody, but it's geared towards girls, towards young girls. So we're still kind of working on completing the curriculum, but we do kind of have a theme for each day. And we are going to incorporate some of those things by providing breakfast for them. And so kind of teaching them how to fuel your body with nourishing things. There's always going to be some kind of movement activity, but ours, I guess, is a little bit more than running. So we're going to have art activities, music activities, cooking. We're going to bring them out into the community, go to the library, functional fitness, Studio 11, and just kind of get them out there to see what it's all about. And during that time, just kind of modeling, positive self-talk, positive friendships, things like that.
So the ages are focused on as girls are entering into the middle school. So 10 through 12. We sent this out to our families in our elementary schools. We have had positive feedback with about 9 families signed up for the class, which is just that 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks before school starts. So it's fresh in their mind as they start entering into middle school for 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. It is their responsibility to get into the middle school and back. We have them sign a waiver, and this is at no cost to them. And the reason why that is we are working with our community members. can go to the next one. We have good partnerships where 1111 will step in, do some donations as well as a learning activity that is also with Functional Fitness is doing the same. And I am working with Health and Human Services on the grant funding. And if we exceed the cost of, or the amount of students that is a little bit overbearing or can be overbearing for Katie and Ann, they are willing to come on board and help affiliate or run the classes and what is going on during that week. So we have great partnerships in the communities where we can put this out to folks. And that being said, is that working with Health and Human Services as well, it is going beyond just the Elkhorn community, but other families that Health and Human Services may be working with, the young girls that may need these services. Any questions?
Questions?
You said you've had positive response. How many registrants do we have? So far?
As of right now, we have 9 registered. I would like to do another email blast to all of our families here within the school district after the 4th of July holiday. Because then that gives us time to get them their shirts, to look at the food aspect of it and solidify the final details.
This is just a daytime program, right?
Yes, just a daytime program where the parents will drop off the young girls at the middle school. And they're aware of everything and what the curriculum will entail as well. And these two are very passionate about it, which I think is phenomenal when you bring young girls into the program. And as much as they have the excitement, it'll run, that energy will go with the young girls to and carry it forward toward their middle school. And it's a pilot program right now. So we'll see how it goes and where it can manifest from there. Wonderful. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for stepping up and for that opportunity.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. First reading.
First,
Sorry, this was, there's another one.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Okay, first up is, Jody had mentioned that in the policy committee meeting, and any of the members can speak up. We've been, over the years, deleting the specific exhibits that are in there as they're somewhat restrictive. So a recommendation from the policy committee was to just delete this exhibit, not create a new one, but proposal to delete that, and then some recommended changes related to the public participation at board meetings. The blue is the new recommended language. We looked at a number of different policies related to public participation on board meetings, and this isn't reflective of necessarily any concerns or anything that's been a part of our board meetings, but in looking around the state and seeing challenges that have come up at other entities. So for example, Wanakee, it was probably a couple of years ago where they were bombarded with hundreds of emails to be read in during the public comment session and so forth, and just different structure. So yeah, I'll let you go ahead and look at that and read that. But again, it would be eliminated, that reading in of email communications in lieu of, but the emails would be provided to the board members. If someone wants to, the discussion I think we had at the policy committee meeting was that if someone wants to make the public comment, then they can come be present and make that comment, but not required, doesn't need to have that read in. Again, doesn't limit them from sending the email. Anybody can send an email at any time, but make sure that it's provided to the board on the topic so that their viewpoint is heard. It does reiterate the, let's see, give that clarification in regards to in public comment, the board can't take action or really deliberate on that item unless it's been placed on an agenda. I think the other change, and I know Mr. Perkins spoke to that, and we discussed this, and where's the best place to put the public comment and so forth. And the policy committee felt that it was important to have the public comment prior to any action items on the agenda so that any public comment can be spoken to that action item. But we did have discussion around moving it from the very first spot at the board meeting to after the student presentations, parent presentations, as we've seen that congestion. Again, that's more so in anticipation if there ever was a time where we've seen other districts where there's 20 or 30 people wanting to make public comment and so forth. But so that was the thought process on moving that public comment that would allow for a shifting in and an out, and having it right before still before any action items were taken. Anything else from the other policy committee members related to that?
Was that changed, Jason?
That would be a change.
So
Yeah,
that was,
that's reflected in here.
okay, so that is something that we were looking at doing, is changing it to moving it to the after the
Yep.
the presentation portion?
To moving it to, from the very first item on the agenda to moving it to before the action items on the agenda. And as of right now, sometimes there'll be an action item up at the top of the agenda, but reorganizing the agenda so that all action items come after the non-action items. So they're all grouped together.
So like when we have, one of the groups from the school come, like HOSA or somebody, they come and do a presentation. To do it after, and often those groups bring in large amounts of people. Not only with the students, but then their parents and stuff like that. So, moving it to after, let those presentations happen, then let them leave and then do the public comment. Just to allow for more space in the room and.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And if people can't be here right at the beginning of the meeting, if you're 1 minute late to the meeting, you've missed the public comment meeting section, so.
This was, but maybe this was slightly before, or slightly after all that stuff, so theoretically, it's still before all the action items.
Yes,
And still gives them the opportunity to be able to talk about it, correct?
Correct.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So it's not after the action items, it's before the action.
Now, some of those presentations would have to still be after, because if it's like a field trip request, that's an action.
Well,
item.
yeah,
So
that's, yeah.
that would still be
That's
after,
different.
the public comment, right?
Right.
Any action item would be after the public.
So for
comment.
example, the two presentations that we just had, it would come after those two that we just had, correct?
Correct, because those were not action items, so those would be moved up.
Those would be moved further up the agenda before the action items.
I've always looked at it, to be honest, but
That's up
I
to
understand, but I understand.
Yeah.
It's certainly up for discussion.
Yeah, the more that we're talking about it, the more I'm like,
We've talked about this a couple of years. I don't know.
Can I get your opinion, Matt, on why that is? I mean, I don't mind either way, so I'd like to.
I think there's two ways of looking at it. The first way is there's respecting time on each side. So if the students are coming in, I hate to make them wait, especially if it's like a longer period of time. So if we're gonna have 30 minutes worth of comments, I guess I could see that being an issue. But at the same time, people know when the meeting starts, when they want to be here, and then a lot of times, like Mr. Perkins said, they've got other things to do. We talked about this, I don't know, like a couple of years ago, probably like 2021, it's like it was the last time it was updated. We definitely didn't want outside people coming in and making, we want people, like if you're a parent, if you're a community member, if you're, we want you to come, that's what, or an employee, we want those people to come in and be able to voice their opinion, but we don't want outside, influences coming in that have nothing to do with our community.
Yeah,
That was why we changed it then.
Matt, could we, because quite honestly, if we get one or two people coming to make public comment, that's a lot.
In 6 minutes, 2 people.
Yeah, so,
I let Mr. Perkins a little longer than 3 minutes today.
I missed a couple weeks.
Yeah.
so if that situation were to arise, if we left it at the very beginning and that situation were to arise where we were gonna be making a couple of student groups wait 30 minutes to make their presentations, could we at that time make a change to the agenda, or do we have to?
We
Can we
could,
amend the
if
agenda?
we did, like, many districts will have a card, or if you go to like a city council meeting, or when I go to testify up at the Capitol on a bill, I fill out a card, so they know that I'm wanting to make a public comment.
Yep.
And then that's turned in. That would allow the board in that scenario, which we've never had.
Right.
But in that scenario, the board could move to, make a motion to move the public comment,
I guess that's where I was.
or move a couple items up ahead of public comment to let the students or the parents.
Yeah, I guess that's where I was
get that.
going with that. Could we make a motion at that time to,
We would need to know ahead of time.
oh, I see.
You see, we would need to modify
Oh, because the.
to
agenda's
include where they
published.
would,
Yeah,
they would note that they plan to make public comment.
got it.
So you'd know if you had 20 or 30
Right, right.
or 1 or 2.
Yes.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that at policy too, and felt like that was a hurdle that we didn't want to have to make people go through.
Well, then on top of that, I mean, no matter, even if we move the public comment period, there's still gonna be times when we're gonna have students sitting in the audience for 30+ minutes potentially, waiting for those comments to be done because there's action items to be done on those things. So we will still have those scenarios. I mean, even since I've been here, there's been at least 3 of them that I can think of where we've had to do action items when students have been here.
I mean, I've been doing it a long time, and yeah, there's been more public comment recently than there was 4 years ago. But still, we're not getting.
No.
I don't know. I mean,
That
I'm
part
only
of
one
it,
person. so
that
if
part of
you
it
guys
is
want to do
not
it.
that important to me, of where it is, where it falls. I'm definitely not in favor of, I'm definitely in favor of the change to eliminating the
reading of
the reading of
emails.
the emails.
100%. I think today's a good example though of, Mr. Perkins had comments and now I'm thinking about it from a different perspective that I had coming into this, right? Because I didn't think about, the part of the intent of public comment is for people to hear what you have to say as a community member. And there are a lot of parents in the room, people in the room, and those public comments are then heard by those people in the room. And it's, that's an advantage to the person speaking. And I never thought of that until he said it earlier. So also his point was,
I guess
if you hear something, is it going to change your
My
mind?
guess was you were looking at this from the standpoint of the kids and respecting if they have
Yeah,
other
sure.
things to do,
Yes.
not to go to their sporting events or whatever they've got going on, that they want to get out of here. They're trying to get out, and 30 minutes could be a long time for them. It's
Yep.
probably where it came from. but-
Something that did
I don't
come
think
up
there's
as
anything
well
wrong with
and,
No, not at all.
was to have those individuals that are doing public comment to be here through the presentations in that portion. I think it doesn't happen often, but I know that comment came up, but once in a while you'll have someone make a statement and just leave, and which, I mean, that's their prerogative.
That was my original point in the policy was if somebody was going to make a public comment, they should have skin in the game, wait for it until, and then it was just random that he said that today and I was like, oh, wait a minute. That offers a different perspective. So it's kind of an interesting example of timing.
Well, it's only a first reading, so I mean, we can
Right.
think about it.
Right.
There's nothing that says we have to.
Right.
We're not approving
We're
this.
not
guys.
approving it, yeah.
Do you want us to make the modifications to the changing of the time slot for the public comment? Is there a general consensus for that? I know there's.
I would say that I would be okay. I think I'm leaning more towards having it just sticking with what we have now, which is at the very
I'm
beginning.
fine with that.
I think
I'm
that-
good with that too.
I think at least-
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
And the language related, I'm kind of hearing a general consensus that amongst the not reading the email communications in, but that being provided to the board.
Yeah.
Or
I think it's
yeah.
the one.
Okay.
Yeah, if they can't be here, it's gonna get delivered
And
to us.
we look at it. anyways.
All right, we can, have Jody make those updates or changes before our second reading. Okay. All right.
You ruined my April 1st joke, by the way, because I was gonna have you read something funny.
Well, I thought, I'm,
Anonymous email.
I do, thank you. I'm surprised that if my friends knew that I had to read this, the emails in, yeah, I could only imagine if they had picked up on that. Okay. All right, we went through that one, student surveys. This was, some changes that we wanted to make sure that no student shall be required to respond to questions in any survey, which they may be uncomfortable. The student survey policy in the primary purpose of it is speaking to third-party surveys. But we wanted to add that language to make sure that any survey that a student, they have a question that they're not comfortable with, that they don't have to respond to or answer that. So one of the things we will have to let our staff know, because when you're setting up a Google form survey, is we'll have to have them switch, not put required answer.
Required
on it.
answer,
Yeah.
right.
So that may cause some hiccups on some innocuous ones because kids might miss a question. And what we point out is the survey tool isn't just used for opinion surveys. It's used for formative assessments, for checking for learning and understanding of students and so forth. So there's a lot of applications that they use those in. So that was kind of the language we felt. We had quite a bit of discussion around that. How do we capture that sense that we don't want kids to have to respond to anything that they're not comfortable with. We also added in the other language that if the survey includes one or more of the following items, let's see. This is in regard to that no student will be required to participate in the survey from that third party if the survey includes any of these items. So we also ask or included physical or sexual abuse, gender identity, or gender expression. Building principal shall notify parents or guardians of third-party surveys. And we struck the language at the beginning of the year because we felt, and by practice, they've been doing this throughout the year anyways, because to think that parents would remember, oh, we gave you the notice at the beginning of the year, you should have known about that. We felt that's not sufficient. So they'll provide it a minimum of 2 weeks prior. Oftentimes we felt that was a time frame that was reasonable because sometimes we don't get the surveys or the questions until that time frame. So like 2 months or a month isn't practical because we often don't get it in that much notice. We also shifted the language that may request to inspect. We struck that because we're changing it to everybody will receive by email. It's, you don't need to request to inspect it. It's just everybody's getting it. So they can look at it ahead of time. Let's see. And then with those changes that everything's being provided there, that other portion wasn't relevant either. Any questions on this one? Yeah, this is our first reading as well.
Good one. Okay, so first reading. Good.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, moving on. Personnel.
All right, personnel sheet, we have a number of resignations. Emma Schmidt, Jose Ruiz, Tommy Truen, and RJ Howard. Special education teaching assistant, softball, and football coach respectively. We have some transfers. Desiree Heckendorf Reed Reese, sorry, from the high school over to Tibbetts as the reading specialist. Alex Coing to options as a school psychologist. Martin Cordova to the shipping and receiving clerk, taking the place of Mr. Belenas. Aaron Weisbrock to Westside as a special education teaching assistant. Lauren Davies to Westside as a fourth grade teacher as a new appointment. Jean Jacobs has been hired to serve as a special education teacher at the middle school. Jessica Harto as a Tibbetts and CCA school psychologist, and Jacqueline Carter as a high school science teacher, and Bo Roddy as a social studies and special education teacher. There's a little more information on the side over there in regards to who they're replacing and so forth. Questions?
So Jean is replacing Vince on this. So what is Vince?
So Vince moved to the elementary level at Westside.
Got it.
At the last, he
Okay.
transferred over to
Okay.
one of Westside, yeah.
And then Desiree's going to Tibbetts. Who's replacing Desiree? Do you know? Still open.
Yeah.
Desiree is open.
Is that something that we asked her to do, or she just wanted to make a move?
We did not ask her to do that. We supported her. She interviewed for it.
Got it.
When I say we, I didn't, and Mrs. Bosch did it. Mr. Frost may have dropped a hint that, hey, I thought you would put your name in the hat for that one. And she was looking at, in education, it's
Yeah.
when you're staying in the same district for a long
Yep.
time, it's, she kind of thought, you know what, this will give me a different level, different challenge to work for, and,
Yeah.
at that level, so.
Okay.
She got to work with first grade students during her program. She really sparked
Okay.
some passion for that level. So
Awesome.
we're sad.
Yeah. I mean, my oldest son had her. I really liked her.
Yeah, she did a phenomenal job at the high school, she'll do a great job at
Yeah.
Tibbetts, so, yeah.
I just was surprised to see that one, and I was like, oh.
Well, we were surprised too.
Yes.
I told Dan he could reach out and try to get Michelle Schaaf to leave Tibbetts and go back to the high school to take the place.
He did.
Yeah. She said no. So, yeah. No, it's all good. And we like to support our staff whenever we can and transferring them to roles that they want to do, so.
All right. Looking for a motion.
I moved to approve the personnel recommendation sheet for June 26, 2023, including new employment contracts, conditioned upon passing the background check and district mandated drug screening as presented.
There's a second.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the personal recommendation sheet for June 26, 2023, including new employment contracts, conditioned upon passing the background check and district mandated drug screening as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Oh, you're good.
That's different.
School gifts.
We've got one school gift to present this evening. It is the PTO, the Elkhorn Area Middle School PTO has donated $544.30 to provide final payment to Adams Power for the outdoor classroom.
All right, we thank them. Looking for a motion.
I move to accept the generous gift as presented.
I'll second.
It's moved and seconded to accept the generous school gift of the middle school PTO as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Second reading of the budget.
Mine's
Not enough time for that. I got
That's all we have.
it.
Guitar class will start. Was it art? I'm not.
It's okay.
We'll sign you up. for
This is
that.
second reading. Were there any questions from the since the first reading that we wanted to go over?
Couple of highlights maybe before we get into any questions. There's not a lot of change from what I shared with you on the 12th of June, but a couple more details have come, I guess, to light that I'll highlight. As you know, the state budget still isn't really done, but the K-12 portion appears to be done, and really what's outstanding is UW system and looking at income taxes and the other piece that might necessarily affect schools directly, but could affect our tax bill we received in December is some additional credits on the school levy and school tax credit. I don't know what that'll look like yet, but that's something we could see when we get our December tax bill. So those are the outstanding items. It appears that as part of the adjustments, there's some increases in the voucher schools. We talked about that at the last meeting. And also the open enrollment figures would be adjusted as well by about $300 a student. I haven't seen final numbers yet, but going through some calculation, which for our district is a very positive thing because we're positive in terms of open enrollment.
So Jason, that letter that you sent to our legislators, what was the result of that?
It was finger pointing. I appreciate that they agreed with, they felt like, at least the responses that I got back, Senator Nassau's office called me right away, their aide did, and said, we're working hard on this. It was missed, and that the open enrollment dollars, which had been in the past tied to those voucher dollar amounts, just got missed in the budget, the discussion, that initial negotiation. So what they shared, that when they reached out at the final hour, the Republicans tried to get that included into the bill, but they said that the governor's office, in order to get that in, and I don't know all the details of it, this is just going from the aide that reached out to me, said that the governor's office in return wanted the voucher dollar amount reduced from what was in that initial proposal, because the aide's words that he was getting beat up from his party that he agreed to increasing the voucher payments that high. My guess is there was probably a quid pro quo in there that we'll give this more to open enrollment, but you got to give something else up. But I don't know the details. Long story short is both sides pointed at each other and blamed each other for not increasing the open enrollment dollars in alignment with the voucher. That's my take on it.
Sure.
Sure, neither side would agree with me on my take, but my point that I shared with them is that our open enrollment dollar amount, to give you an idea, for a high school student in Elkhorn that we're receiving who's open enrolled, about $8,600. Okay, but if you're going to a private school, you'll get $12,000. That's $9,400 or $3,400 difference.
That's wrong.
So it's not an insignificant amount. We have a lot of high school students that are open enrolled in. That would have been a big help on our budget. So that initial optimism that I had was kind of, I guess $300 better than nothing. Because my understanding is they kind of forgot it completely.
Got it.
And the increase that I'm sharing with you tonight is really based on current law, so it looks at the revenue cap adjustment.
Okay.
So the adjustment to reflect the vouchers, as Jason identified, I don't think it's.
It's not gonna move.
It's not gonna move.
Needle. Yeah.
So that's probably the most significant changes. It looks like we're going to receive a little additional equalization aid, which is a good thing, but that usually just impacts the tax levy piece. It doesn't give us any additional money to work with. Because the voucher school monies are going up, that has an effect on our levy a little bit, though. It does increase the levy because it's part of that voucher school payment. We're able to capture that, school districts are, by increasing the levy through the reduction of the equalization aid. That's really how it works. So it makes us whole, but the source of it comes from our local tax levy as opposed to state aids. So that's just how state law is designed, although there is some legislation to change that as well too. So that may ultimately the final budget be resolved as well.
So because really in a sense, Bill, the state doesn't pay for that voucher, the local tax pays for it.
And if you go to the kind of the top of that page you have up, Jason, you'll kind of see, I think I've got a number there, it's the
voucher schools, item number 7. So you see that private school voucher A deduction of 308,000. Based on the number of students that currently participate, and we won't know that for sure until October. Based on the new numbers, it would be increasing to 364,000. Kind of how that. So overall, again, this is very preliminary. I can tell you that all of these numbers will change to a certain extent. We will see, because the state is required to provide an estimated equalization aid payment July 1st. So you may see something about that. Sometimes the media picks up on that, says this is what the school districts are going to receive. That's an estimate. So we really won't know until October 15th what that is. And by that time, we'll have our final student numbers, we'll know our open enrollment, and we'll know our property valuations, really to finalize the budget. But based on the numbers, overall, we're looking at, potential levy increase of 2.96%. Assuming that our property values increase corresponding to about 3%, it would provide about an equal mill rate impact for the school district based upon those estimates. But like I said, those numbers will change as we kind of journey through the final budget. Assuming the board approves a preliminary budget tonight, then that information we will share with the public as part of the annual meeting, which is fourth Monday in July, and the public there is asked to go on school levy. But if there's other detailed questions, certainly we can address those tonight.
I think when looking at in our overall operational budget, I think this number right there is probably my mind, one of the most important, because that tells us how much our budget's increasing from our revenue limit from this year to next year. And so it's not even quite $200,000, despite everything that the state put in, on the revenue limit and so forth. So it's a total of 0.60 of 1%. And in large part because our change in local membership, which makes up our revenue limit, went down by 38 students on average, is what we projected.
And the year before it went down 64 students, so it was a 3-year average. So it's starting to kind of roll over 2 years now, the negative number.
Yeah.
So that does impact our revenue cap, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that's where you see that whole harmless number where it kind of eases the negative impact, but eventually it does impact our school district.
Any other questions on that?
I think the other opportunity we might have going forward is looking at our debt service fund. So one of the items I put in here is the defeasance of some of that debt service, which means we're putting some money in the debt service to begin to pay off some of our debt maybe faster.
Sure.
And not only is that good, I think financially to pay off those obligations, but if we can then eliminate the interest rates on those are direct savings to the public and our taxpayers.
What's the highest interest rate that we're paying right now on any?
Well, that's in one of those pages. I think it's a little over 2%.
Okay. Which
That's
is
the net
phenomenal.
interest cost, but several of our issues like 1.27.
Yeah.
1.8. So to refinance,
Oh.
it's not an option for us today.
No.
We really got good rates.
Yeah.
But if we could pay some of those off early, just pay them off, I think
Sure.
that would be worthwhile.
It's always good to pay off debt.
Yep.
Other questions? All right, we have to approve it. Take it time.
Sorry.
I move to approve the 2023-2024 district preliminary budget as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2023-2024 district preliminary budget as presented.
Mr. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mr. Gatton?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles?
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow?
Yes.
Motion carried. All right, second reading.
All right, I did have, no feedback regarding either of these two policies. The one, again, is just updating some of that language to report that and to their supervisor and follow the protocols in the employee handbook. And then the next one is the acceleration procedures. Any questions related to either of those? Most of that update was aligning to the tools that are currently in use.
Any comments, questions? Looking for motion to approve.
I move to approve revised policies 32.21 workers' compensation insurance and 345.41 rule acceleration procedures as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded to approve the revised policies 532.21 workers' compensation insurance and 345.41 rule acceleration procedures as presented. Mr. Whipple.
Mr. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles?
Yes.
And Mr. Scarrow?
Yes.
Motion carried. Announcements.
Let's see, the next board meeting is, just a reminder, scheduled for July 17th. We're moving it from July 10th. As Bill and I will both be out of town on that date. The annual meeting and the second board meeting in July will remain on the 24th. The annual meeting will be at 6 o'clock in the auditorium at the high school. The regular school board meeting will immediately follow there at the high school. I did want to share, we received an announcement from Kiwanis today that our middle school Key Club was recognized as one of 39 in the nation as a distinguished club. I want to give a big shout out to Katie Spurley and Erica Card, who are the middle school club advisors. And I included a hyperlink in there if you're curious to see all the other recipients, but we're the only one in the state of Wisconsin.
Wow, that's great.
And then I'd like to look at, and this is, I'll get together with Jody and create a doodle, but we thought about this for some time, and I think it'd probably be a good time, especially with, having 3 new board members on this year, to look at doing a curriculum and instruction board retreat similar to what we do for the budget retreat. So I'd like to look at perhaps that second weekend in August. And again, I'll have Jody send out a doodle and see what that looks like. But I thought that would be something good, and then we could put together an agenda, go through topics and background information related to that, look at student data, and do kind of that deep dive like we do with the budget, but focusing on construction. That's all I had. We do have a closed session.
Yes, looking for motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85, parenthetical 1, parenthetical C, to consider salary adjustments for supervisors and administrators.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn to closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute 19.85.1C. To consider salary adjustments for supervisors and administrators, the school board will reconvene an open session for action as appropriate and or to adjourn.
Mr. Andre?
Yes.
Mr. Gayheart?
Yes.
Mr. Gavin?
Yes.
Mrs. Ingersoll?
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Reckles?
Yes.
Mr. Scarrow?
Yes.
Motion carried. Let's say a couple minutes and then.